don't even know what week. We're so ahead of ourselves.
I know.
I don't even know what week we're on, but I'm really proud of us.
One of the things that's really fun about this is that we will congratulate ourselves for being so far ahead, and then at some point be like,
the episode's out tomorrow. We got to record. Exactly.
You know, these are the way these things happen, but we try.
I mean, we do our very best. We're just trying to get by over here at Fated Mates, everyone. Welcome. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor.
And traditionally, we start the podcast with a little bit of banter, and I understand you have something on your list, Jen.
I can't remember what it is.
Oh boy! See, we're really doing the job here. Well, I have something on my list.
Okay, maybe it'll come back.
All right,
to me.
Here's the thing I want to talk about, and I know that usually we chit chat our way into whatever it is, but I read this thing today, and I just had to talk to you about it.
Okay,
and I'm so glad that we're recording because why not just do it in front of the world?
Obviously.
Have you heard of this thing that's happening on dating apps? Everybody is like, right now, like, what? Where men label themselves 666.
Okay. That's not where you thought. No. So I'd heard about something else. You go.
Okay. So apparently this is like a common thing on like Hinge or Twitter. Not Twitter. Twitter's not a dating app.
God,
or
no.
Tinder.
Unless you want to meet a Nazi.
So on these dating apps, like if a man writes 666 in his bio, what it means is he is, well, what do you think it means, Jen?
He's mediocre across the board.
It's not a devil. It's not a devil thing. It's not like
not.
the number of the beast. It's 6-6-6. So what does it mean?
Mediocre across the board.
Just a 6, a solid 6.
I'm a solid 6, and I'm proud of it. Know your place. Yeah. Okay, so that's my first guess.
It is not. He is mid.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
This is really going to be a test of whether or not we are in fact fated mates because I
know right away?
I was incorrect.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, I don't know. That's really my only guess.
Okay.
I don't know. That's it. That was my best guess.
It's 3 items. It is just a descriptor, and it is 3 items. Does that help? He is over 6 feet tall.
Oh, sure. Okay.
He has a 6-figure income. And he has 6-pack abs.
3 of those 3 are a lie, is what I would say.
Okay, wait. But here's the thing. So I was like 6'6". So I saw this like tweet go by, and of course, because now this is like a whole thing. It wasn't a tweet, it was a thread. And the whole thing now, and it's making me completely insane, which is nobody gives you the information that you actually want in the actual thread. You have to click it open because it makes for engagement. And I'm annoyed by all of this. I feel like I'm being played all the time because I actually do always open it. So I opened the thread and there was no information about what this meant, but there were many, many comments by people who knew, like who were speaking of it as though it were a thing. So I was like, okay, I am a halfway intelligent person. I should be able to figure this out. So I was like, okay, well, he's over 6 feet tall.
I was kind of like, it has to do with his height, but then I was like, surely not.
He has a 6-figure income. Like, okay. And then I was like, and his cock is over 6 inches.
Oh my God, everybody hears me. Actually, I'm literally wheezing. That's not good. I was like, he has 6 brain cells to run together. He watched more than 6 hours of women's sports and therefore feels he earned, right? I mean, who knows?
But like, wait a second. Because everybody, it's too late to tell you to put your headphones in, but put your headphones in. Listen, like, I think that is a more important piece of information potentially than whether or not you have a 6-pack. I mean, I guess, like, I don't know. But I'm just saying, obviously, Fated Mates has corrupted me because I definitely would not have thought this way before. I'm a little, like, embarrassed / disappointed that you didn't also come on this ride with me.
Yeah,
and,
sorry. Yeah.
No, it's fine. And also, like, I feel like if we're gonna do this math, you might as well cut to the chase, everyone.
Right, exactly.
What
I don't know.
is he packing?
6-pack abs, Sarah.
Yeah.
What a world.
Yeah. So that is my peek into what's happening on dating apps, and my condolences to everybody who has.
I feel like if this was women, it should be like 10, 10, 10. And it's like,
yeah, I'm a fucking 10.
I'm a 10. I'll put up with your bullshit for 10 minutes before cursing you out.
I can do 10 things in the amount of time it takes you to do one. How about that?
Yes, there you go. Right?
No, but listen, we should not, and all joking aside, everybody, this is a terrible way to date. And it
I know,
and
I'm
I
sorry.
feel for you.
I
It
do.
seems terrible. And I unfortunately don't have any single friends who I would set you up with.
Yeah, no, I'm
Is
sorry.
the important piece there.
I'm sorry, everybody. But maybe, yeah. You just know you're a 10. Everybody listening, you're a 10.
Yeah, you guys are perfect 10s. Don't settle for 6s, is what we're saying here at Betamates. Also, I would like to tell you, and I don't know, I think I have told this story on the podcast before because Barry Ligo, who we mentioned last episode, I think, is a friend of mine, and he was also a guest on the podcast at one point. And so I think you know this, but some people do not, which is I have achieved like the highest level, the perfect 10, if you will, of romance novelist dumb.
Okay. Let me know more.
And I know that sounds arrogant to some of you, but the reality is that perfect 10 of romance novelist means that you've actually done it in real life. You've taken two people and made a match in real life.
Yes.
And I introduced Barry Liga to his delightful wife, Morgan Baden, who also writes middle grade novels. And they are absolutely wonderful together. And I went to a thing at their house last weekend, Barry's birthday. I won't name the age because I'm a good friend. And it was a fundraiser for the States Project, which is an organization that raises money. It is a PAC for Democrats that raises money for down ticket races to either flip state legislatures from red to blue, hold state legislatures that are already blue but in danger of flipping back, or break supermajorities in states where the governor is a Democrat and the state legislatures are heavily Republican, in order to swing in order to make it impossible for a veto to be overturned.
Yeah.
These are great things. As we talked about last week on the podcast, state legislatures are where every single law you care about are passed and written, from school funding to bathroom laws to abortion laws to I don't even know what.
Yeah, right. You name it.
Everything.
Book banning,
all of it.
all, right?
All of it. Healthcare in a lot of cases, like it's all in here, including they are the ones who draw the lines for election districts, for voting districts, and they are the ones who ultimately certify the elections. You might have heard that we have an election coming up in the United States. So sorry to our
non-American. Yeah, right.
To our non-American, our international listeners. But we have started a giving circle because I just basically copy Barry and all things. We've started a giving circle. It is available to you. We are encouraging our listeners who maybe don't have the bandwidth or the wherewithal or the interest or the courage to phone bank with us on the weekends to put that energy into donating to the States Project. We are raising money for the state of Pennsylvania to hold the Pennsylvania state legislature for Democrats, to ensure that when Kamala Harris wins the election and the state of Pennsylvania will make sure that they certify the election.
Yeah.
That is the work we're doing. The information is all available to you on our website at fatedmates.net/giving circle. The tiniest amount of gift helps. $5, $10, whatever you can give. I mean, if you can give
Sure, more.
You know,
That'd be great.
$50
right?
or $100,000. We'll take that too. I think we're not picky, is what I'm saying.
Right. I think the thing is like a little amount can go a long way and can just make you feel like you did something, right? And of course, we understand a lot of people cannot even do that. And that is totally fine too. You can just like talk to your neighbors and encourage people to vote. Like all of those things matter, right?
Yep.
So talking to people about your voting plan and what you're going to do is also just super important.
But if you can give, this is a very, very good place to give. The Harris campaign has a lot of money and they are using it well. And this is a way for us to make real change on the ground.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing I would say, like, I live in Illinois. We currently have a terrific governor, and it is amazing what a difference it makes, right? Just today, there was a huge ProPublica article about women in Georgia who have died as a result of the abortion laws that were passed there, like explicitly like denied care. And so it is just really important to support your state. And we understand that, like, there are lots of states where voting is impacted, is suppressed. And so, helping out in whatever way you can. And we just want to give you like lots of different options, right? We don't want you to feel like, the only option is like knocking on doors, right? Like there are lots of options. And that's what we're here to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. We've heard you. We know some of you are just not, you're nervous about phone banking or you're uncomfortable with phone banking, and that is okay. Here's another way. We are trying to help. And we've been through this. We went through this last episode. We ran our book banning episode. You all know where we stand. Join us on Saturdays for phone banking. You can find all that information at fatedmates.net/fatedstates and give to the Fated States Giving Circle at the States Project. That information is at fatedmates.net/giving circle. And that giving circle will survive beyond this election because we are in this fight forever.
Right. Yeah.
And now we're done with that.
We're done with
But let's talk about, well, we're not really done with politics because inspired by our first second gentleman, Doug Emhoff.
And our currently running for vice president, Tim Walz. Our amazing topic this week is, go ahead, tell them, Sarah, what they've won. This was your idea.
It's wife guys, everyone.
And of course, I was like, okay, but they're not wife guys until the end of a book. And Sarah was like, it's the wife guy aesthetic. And then I was like, oh, I understand.
Aesthetic.
Now I understand. So there's a couple, right? Like we completely adore, right, first gentleman Doug, and the way that he is just constantly cheerleading Kamala. Yes. We think it's awesome, right?
But you know what? Joe Biden used to call Jill Biden, continues to, I'm sure, Jilly Bean.
Oh my God, listen,
loves Dr. Jill Biden more than anything.
Can I just tell you something?
Barack and Michelle.
I know. The person I am most really honestly thrilled for in this whole situation is Jill Biden. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that she gets to like have her husband back, you know what I mean? As they are entering into their more elderly years, right? I think it's great. I'm so happy for her. But also Tim Walz this week, and I sent Sarah this video and we can put this on to, after, he's a big Swiftie and he had a video where he was saying, here's what he said. Here's my life hack for all the guys out there. Surround yourself with smart women and listen to them and you'll do just fine. That includes my fellow cat owner, Taylor Swift. It's really great to have all of these women help us beat the smallest man in the world. And I was like, this is a wife guy, right?
A perfect wife guy.
Yeah.
Now listen.
Oh, I have one more of my favorite wife guys. Not a politician, though. If you watch the Olympics at all.
Oh, my God.
Hunter Woodall.
Yeah.
Hunter Woodall is, because they are like a gold winning medal Olympic. He's in the Paralympic gold medalist, and she's a gold medalist in the long jump. And she was obviously the Olympics were before the Paralympics. And when she won, and he just was like,
he just leaned out and like wrapped her into a big hug. He was so fucking proud of her.
Yes.
Listen, when we say wife guys, that's the vibe we're looking for. We want somebody who's going to like cheer as loudly as they can from the sidelines. Be so fucking proud of that woman he loves.
Know how capable you are.
Astounded that he gets to breathe the same air
Yes.
as his heroine.
Yes. Yeah.
This is where we are.
This is where we are. Yeah. Okay. I know that I'm going to end up talking mostly about like MF romances, and I do not want it to seem like that is, a wife guy is an aesthetic.
Is
it
a
is
state
not
of mind.
about a gender, but I know that I am also because of just like my place in the world. So I just wanted to like kind of call that out in the beginning because it is not our usual practice to like only talk about male female romances or whatever. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Sarah Chamberlain, author of The Slowest Burn.
Okay, Ellie Wasserman likes to keep it tight. What I mean
Virgo
by
energy.
that, yeah, big Virgo energy. She is a top ghostwriter for celebrity cookbooks, which is a very cool job. And obviously, when I read this book in manuscript form, what feels like years ago, I was so excited about it because I love this setup. She's also been widowed, and she, in the wake of her husband's death, has really struggled to sort of explore or take any kind of risk at all. She still lives at home with her grieving in-laws. She won't move out because she doesn't know what that will do to their relationship. She doesn't want to harm them or hurt them in any way. She definitely will not date. She absolutely is like choosing jobs that she knows will like keep her on the straight and narrow. What she is not expecting is Kieran O'Neill to come on the scene. Kieran is an up-and-coming chef who scored huge on reality television and made a name for himself as sort of a chaos monster. He cracks jokes. He makes big messes in the kitchen. And he is just sort of beloved by the world because he's a whirling dervish. But he is absolutely wrong for Ellie. Nevertheless, she needs this job. She takes it, and when they meet, it is like oil and water. He's just all over the place, completely disorganized. She needs everything to be precise and exactly the way it is. It's really fun watching these two cook because he's like, I don't know, a handful of that. And she's like, well, what? It's a cookbook. You got to know how much. And as they're working together in a kitchen for weeks on end, things get steamy. And they really have to both learn how to defy expectations and learn who they are when they let themselves love. And it's really lovely.
So if you would like this contemporary foodie romance with fake dating, grumpy sunshine, and big workplace vibes, check out The Slowest Burn. It is available in print, ebook, and audio. As a special treat for all of our listeners, there's an audio excerpt of The Slowest Burn at the end of this episode. So stick around to make sure you listen. Thanks to Sarah Chamberlain for sponsoring this week's episode.
I have like a massive list because what I realized, and like, so this idea came to me because I was like so delighted by Doug Emhoff's just like whole vibe during the DNC, just like the way he just was delighted by her from the jump. And then there's that gif that goes around of him like being so excited about he's sitting in the gallery in the Senate and he sees her like sitting as the president of the Senate, like the head of the Senate as vice president. And he's like clapping and she points up at him and is like, please just don't, like, what are you doing? And he like can't handle it. He's so excited for her. So I posted to Threads like, this is like hero shit. Like, this is it. And if you have a hero who is like this, please let me know. And one of the first comments was, you mean every Sarah McLean hero? And I was like, oh shit, it's core story for me. Like, and like we have talked about core story many times over the course of the podcast. Not possibly the greatest conversation that we had about core story was our Trailblazer interview with Jane Ann Krentz. And if you have not listened to that, and you are, well, anyone in the whole world, you should go listen to it. But if you are a writer, right, you should go listen to that Trailblazer episode because it is remarkable. Like, it is a truly it was a mind-altering experience for me as a writer and as a reader, but especially as a writer. So, and And I think like core story is one of those things where if you read an author enough, if you read enough of their books, you get to a place where you as the reader can say like, okay, like, you know, Lisa Kleypas's core story is heroes who caretake, like who like will burn down the world to protect their heroines, right? Like, and that is every iteration of a Kleypas hero is something close to that, right? They're like heavy protectors. Or like, you know, Susan Elizabeth Phillips has this like very clear Cinderella core story, like, you know, a heroine who like just is born, you know, or at least like over the course of the backstory of the book comes to a place where like she is downtrodden and like she is scrappy and downtrodden, but she will prevail.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
I think I am very difficult. It is impossible for me to see my own core story. Like, I don't know what they are because I am too close to it. And also because it feels like every time I sort of come to a core story, I think to myself, like, oh no, do I have to go back to therapy? But when this person said that, I was like, oh shit. Like, wife guy is like truly like plugged, like installed in my DNA.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I was thinking the same thing because I really was kind of like, where does my original like wife guy aesthetic come from? And I think it's from Julie Garwood.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, Alec Kincaid, like one of my favorite scenes. And I mean, here's the other thing. I have another theory about this, which is wife guyness in a book it happens at the scene level, right? So like when I was thinking about like what I wanted to talk about, it was like some of my all-time favorite scenes in romance, like that bubble up, right? And the thing because I was kind of like, I got a little stuck, but like one of my favorite scenes in all of romance is in The Bride, right? When Jamie essentially is like this young, you know, dummy is trying to manhandle her. And she kind of comes into Alec and he's like busy talking with the man friends. He's like, well, can't you just handle it? And she's like, well, yes, I can. And she like pulls the sword off the wall and goes and is going to essentially go like, and I just really found myself thinking like, oh, this is where the wife guyness lives in me, right? It's like that moment where, like, you know, one of these heroes is basically like, can't you do this by yourself? Or I trust you to do it by yourself. Or it didn't even occur to me that you can do it by yourself. And I really think I was kind of like, oh, like Julie Garwood really like hits for me in that way. Right.
Yes. I mean, it's also like, what is it? I think it's Saving Grace, maybe. I can't remember which one it is with the wolf.
Yeah.
Where like the you know, there's been this like wolf who's been like terrorizing the clan and like this, and Julie loves a heroine who is like on her own.
Oh yeah.
Stripped of any support network, right? Like suddenly delivered to a hero and like has to rebuild a community, right? We've talked about this on the Julie Garwood episodes. But there is, I will confirm this and we will put it into the show notes for everybody. But there is one where like there is a wolf that is terrorizing the clan and she is all alone. So she takes these like long walks in the woods and she meets a dog out there and she like befriends this dog who ultimately like there's a whole thing where she's being attacked and the dog runs like across, like basically like beats the hero to save her. Yeah. And it turns out that she has befriended the wolf that has been eating all the sheep. Like, and like now, and then like the wolf comes in and like sleeps on the rushes, you know, like by their bed. And of course, this is like a kind of heavy-handed metaphor for the hero, but whatever.
Fine. All animals are symbols, and it is like, true.
Yeah. And he is like, oh, fuck, I love her so much. Like, he can see, and it's not just because he thought she was going to get eaten by a wolf, but also because, like, he's like, she tamed this wild animal, right? Like, this is also, you find this in Jude Deveraux novels with heroines who can ride the hero's unrideable horse.
Oh, of course. Or, I mean, listen, Kiss an Angel. She tames a tiger.
Yeah. And he's just like,
of course.
He finds her sleeping in the tiger's cage.
I know.
And he cannot deal.
No. And he's just like, you shouldn't be doing that. She's like, fuck off.
Yeah. But in actual fact, he's like, you shouldn't be doing that. But also he's like, perfect.
I know, right?
Look at how amazing she is. Look at her. Yeah. Look at her.
Okay, so here's my question before we launch into like more book talk, because I had that moment where I was like, this is where it comes from for me. Listen, until you said it, I had forgotten about that fucking part where she tames that wolf. I'm gonna go read that tonight.
Yeah. I mean, for the record, that moment though, like there is a sort of, I would like to discuss the heroine of it all too, because I think there are two kinds of wife guys. There's like wife guys with heroines who don't know they're special, like that. She tamed a wolf, but she thought it was a dog.
She didn't even know, right?
Right. She rode the horse, but she didn't know it was unrideable. And then there is the wife guys who are just so fucking proud of their like magnificent, strong, brilliant presidential heroines.
Right. Here's my question, Sarah, which is, do you think that my wife is different than wife guys? Because I really like my wife.
I know you do.
That is mine, but with 2 words. That's all. Everybody.
I really like the more we're 7 seasons in, and I think like the more we talk, the further we get down the like deep, dark rabbit hole of Jen's romance psyche. I think like, I think Alec Kincaid is your original Button.
Oh, for sure. Although it's really funny because I reread as a kid or like a young person, The Secret the most, which is the one with the 2 friends.
Yeah.
Because I think what I liked about that hero is that he was not as the Alec Kincaidness of it all was taken down a notch, right?
Dialed down. Well, because once you write Kincaid, you can't.
Right. He wasn't quite entirely. You're never going to write Alec Kincaid again. He wasn't quite entirely like the master of all he surveyed. You know what I mean? He had like a couple of people hanging off his coattails or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, for sure. But yeah, my wife, I think the difference between wife guy and my wife is like the protectiveness / sometimes possessiveness, right?
Yes.
Whereas like wife guys are just purely like, can you fucking believe how great she is?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? So I think there is, I have made this like massive list of books, and in actual fact, it's not like that. It is not hugely massive because what it is authors. It's almost exclusively like these are the authors who like any book you pick up is going to be a wife guy book, right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting about it is as I'm looking at it, I do have a Kleypas book on this list, which is Suddenly You. But I think Kleypas is a my wife author.
Agreed.
I don't think I am a my wife author.
You are a wife guy's author.
I am a wife guy author. So I do think there is a difference. And that is not to say that I think if I deployed, and I'm sure I have at some point or another, like deployed that's my wife because it's hot, let's be honest.
Sure.
I don't believe that I have ever deployed it without the hero also being a wife guy.
Right.
Like for me, there is no Venn diagram. Like my wife lives inside of wife guy for me.
Right.
But I do not believe that my wife guy, that wife guys live inside my wife for Lisa Kleypas.
Right.
You know what I mean?
agree. Yeah, I would agree. My one last thought was, I mean, I agree with you. Like, I have authors where I'm like, okay, now I'm just going to pick my favorite one. Okay, so now let's go back to your books, because my favorite wife guy of all of your wife guys is Tommy from Knockout.
I mean, you are predisposed to like Tommy.
I am predisposed to like Tommy, but however, and of course, I think part of the reason why is wife guy really hits best for me when, in fact, she is notably fucking awesome.
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Imogen is a munitions expert, right? Like, she literally can do things that other people can't do.
Yes.
And because it's like rule breaking, right? Like in the sense, or like transgressive, right?
Yep.
Like, she's a woman doing this thing that men are supposed to do or be good at or whatever. I think it just hits a little differently for me. I think those are the ones where because it feels like in the best wife guy books for me, she has been surrounded by men who did not appreciate her.
Yes.
And therefore, the wife guyness of it all is something like she really needs, right? Because there are some women who, if you like wife guide Jessica Trent or whatever, right? I mean, he's like a my wife. I think, would you agree? Jane is my wife, right? She would be like, yeah, I already know I'm awesome. I don't need that from you. Right.
Yeah.
But like Imogen needs that from Tommy. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do. I think that's
it. Like, I would not want to wife guy someone who doesn't want to be it. Who doesn't want that.
You're hitting on here, and I will speak to it as a core story, like therapy moment. What you're hitting on is this sense of, it sort of rides up to the line of, no one has ever seen me with like a capital S.
Yes. Right.
But you.
Right.
And like, that is a really romance, like a that has deep roots in the genre.
Yes.
Like, I have been invisible to the world until you saw me.
Right. Right.
And there's something very powerful about that. I think the difference, and this goes to like there being two different kinds of heroines, right, in these books. Because I do think in one case, the heroine knows that she is amazing. Like, I think Imogen knows, right? Like, she's like, no one has ever seen me.
Right.
But you. But I know. I'm fucking great.
Right.
Right. But I think, again, like going back to those Garwood heroines, like that's not.
Right. Well, and that's when you said that, right? Like Garwood heroines are alone. Right. And so when this man is like, I see you. Right.
It's like they see themselves. It's like suddenly they become corporal. Right. You know.
Right.
Is that
I don't mean that in a terrible way, because I think like I'm not really super interested in like women who are like nothing until a man sees them.
No, and
but
that's
I just
not
think
the
it's
goal,
like,
but like there is some like that is some of the like fairy dust of those books is, and like I think that's why those books hit so hard for us when we were young, right? Like there is a certain sense of like a young woman in the 80s or early 90s, like kind of finding it relatable. Yeah. Like, no one's ever seen me before. I'm invisible. And now I'm not.
Right.
And I think like we're seeing this shift now. I think it's funny because when I was making this list, there are not that many books on this list that are like super current, like the last year. And in fact, I have no books on this list that are from the last year and I think the reason why is because I do think there is something going on with heroes right now. Yeah. That like is wife guy adjacent, but I'm not prepared to identify it.
I had on my list too, like, are cinnamon rolls wife guys? And I don't think they are. I don't know. Right? I think that is a different, whatever is happening with that archetype is different than whatever a wife guy is to me.
Here is my question for you.
Okay.
Does a wife guy in romance, now we're not talking about like the real life people who we have, also because we don't know any of
we don't actually know any of those people.
And we've been burned by Dave Grohl.
I mean, listen, you would have asked me 3 weeks ago. I'd have been like, Dave Grohl, wife guy.
Listen, the reality is like, we don't want to talk about real life men on this podcast, really ever.
No.
So,
accurate.
Okay, here's my question. In romance, does a wife guy, a true like kind of peak like level 10 wife guy, have to start out not like as exasperated man?
You know what?
Do you love this podcast? Because I really enjoy this. Is the recipe for wife guy in romance, part exasperated man.
Yes. I would say yes.
So too. I think
Because
so too.
I would like to say yes. And here's what I would also say
Listen.
though. Right? Exasperated man.
We're good at this.
We are good at this. I am in love with that question. Why? Listen, marry me. Okay. You know what's funny though? Here's what I would also say. Wife guy. And the reason this makes me think of this is I would like to talk about Tessa Bailey writes wife guys.
Yes, fucking one
Every
of them.
one of them is a wife guy. And we might have to have like a Tessa Bailey interlude where we discuss some of our favorite wife guys.
Feel like we need to bring Tessa in.
Yes.
For like 10 minutes on wife guys.
Right? But like one of my but again, like these are like the details that really make a wife guy sing, which is they don't just love the heroine. They love their moms, they love their sisters, they respect their women who they work with, right? Like these are men
It's
who
the
are
Tim Walsh quote.
yes, right.
Surround
exactly.
yourself with smart women.
So in Worked Up, which is one of my favorite, I have many favorite Tessa Bailey books, and it wasn't even the one I was going to talk about, but all of his sisters have been divorced, Duke's sisters, and they live with him.
Yeah. Hilarious. That
Right?
was the one I was going to bring up. So keep going.
But that's like my point to your exasperated man, right? He is completely exasperated by this. All he wants to do is watch SportsCenter. But
That is the one part of that book that doesn't clock because no way does that man watch SportsCenter
no,
with that many sisters.
But that's what the joke is. All he wants to do is watch SportsCenter, but he never can because all his sisters are always around and interrupting him, right? That's why it's fucking funny. And so he, to me, is like, right, exasperated man, hello, and then along comes our heroine, right? I mean, so I think that like he goes, I think Tessa Bailey, though, what she does so well is they are all both wife guys and my wife. So it's like, for me, it's like the double.
Yeah, it's
right?
one circle.
It's like
It's a concentric
supercharged.
circle.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So in that scenario I think you've also hit on this thing, this like a book peopled with girls, right? Is a piece of this. So I think, just going back to my own books for a second, because Tommy has a sister and a mother. His father is dead, right? I think the other half of my white guys, the king of the other side of my white guy, why do I keep saying white guys? They are also white, but my wife, okay. The king of the other side of my wife guys is Mal from Day of the Duchess. And the reason why I say this is because when I had this like epiphany that this was core story for me, I immediately thought of a scene where Mal is literally sitting in the back corner table at the Singing Sparrow, which is his wife's bar in London. Right. And she is like having it out with the hero of Bombshell at the time, Caleb Calhoun. And Caleb turns to him and is like, what are you going to do about your wife?
Yeah.
And Mal is like, this is her business. And he's just like doing paperwork for his dukedom, right? Like, he is just like, this is him. But I think Mal did not start out as a wife guy at all.
Right.
At all.
No.
But then he inherited Serafina and her 4 sisters.
Yeah.
Who are chaos incarnate. Right? So like, I think there is that. I think Tessa Dare does a wife guy very well, too. Like, I think she is a person, and again, because her books are all sort of connected by women, maybe that's part of why they read that way. Like, I think it's very difficult to write a hero into a romance novel at any point in romance history and have him be terrible to women. Right. Like you can't surround him with women and have him be like, women suck, but not you.
Right.
Even the ones who do say women suck, but not you, are like, but they're decent to women.
But I mean, like, listen, I would never bring up Elizabeth Lowell on this podcast.
Oh, no.
These are not wife guys.
Elizabeth Lowell just got a shiver.
She like turned over in her grave.
You know who writes a wife guy, though?
She went to a grave, got into it, and turned around in it.
Yeah, exactly. Nora fucking Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Rourke is a wife guy. Like,
Rourke is a wife guy. In fact, isn't there like an ongoing shtick about how he's constantly referring to Eve as his wife? And she's like, stop doing that. Maybe it's not ongoing, but in like one of the books I read, I was like, okay.
Yeah, like it just feels like Nora Roberts.
Yeah,
yes,
she writes deeply competent heroines.
Such competent heroines.
And these men admire them for it. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Right?
So, like, I have a list of these authors because I feel like this is important, like, for us to just identify. I think this is as I was making the list, I was like, holy shit, like, this is like a standard core story in romance. And I wonder a little bit if part of the reason why it's a standard core story in romance is because for many years in early romance, right? Like, so in the 80s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s even, like being a romance novelist, like we used to talk when I started, Eloisa James pulled me aside and she was like, listen, if there ever comes a time where you make more money than your husband, that could be a real problem for like in your marriage, right? And when I was sort of like, what? Like,
what are you talking about?
Like, she was like, that could be a real problem. It has broken up.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, we talked about this.
Like
Joanna,
100
the old
romance
school
marriages,
first, right?
And I think that there is something. So I think like in these early books, these early authors, like the idea of a hero who would look at a heroine who was competent at work or in life or like at tasks.
Yeah.
And find that not threatening, but fucking great.
Yeah.
Was incredibly powerful. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Avery Maxwell, author of Late Nights and Love Lines.
Sarah, this is the second book in the Single Dad Hotline series.
I love this series idea. It sounds so fun.
Well, in this case, we have Rowan and Sebastian.
Who's the idiot on the phone, Jen?
It would be Sebastian. And basically his situation is he has 3 kids. His ex-wife has caused a huge ruckus with her new man, and he just wants someone who is going to like, he needs a nanny, he needs someone to like bring it all together, someone who can like make his household calmer and like sort of like make the kids feel safe and secure again. So he buys a home at the childhood camp that he like loved to go to and is basically like, I'm just gonna like get it all together. But he calls up that Single Dad hotline, never expecting that the woman who would show up is Rowan Ellis, the childhood best friend that he went to that camp with that he'd lost touch with. Meanwhile, Rowan is like, how am I supposed to turn down being a single live-in nanny to my childhood crush and his awesome kids? So even though the past and present are colliding in a real weird way for her, this is creating a future maybe she's not even sure she wants. She cannot help but say yes to Sebastian's desperate pleas for help. And that Single Dad hotline, it looks like it's more like a single dad and a beautiful live-in nanny matchmaking service.
If you love a single dad romance, obviously this one is for you, but this one's also got small towns and nannies, and guess what, everyone? He's also a billionaire, so terrific. No notes. You can read Late Nights and Love Lines right now in print, ebook, or your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. Thanks to Avery Maxwell for sponsoring this week's episode. I think we should start with individual books.
Okay.
And then I will go to my like massive list.
Your massive list.
But
okay.
I want to start with Tracy Livesey. And I know I said like I'm going to talk about individual books and not a whole like body of work, but like truly like this is a Tracy core story too. I think you could pick up any Tracy Livesey book and get this exact feeling, but I want to talk about American Royalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I think it is like if you were going to teach wife guys in a college setting, American Royalty is like the blueprint for it. And the reason why I say that is because the premise of American Royalty is we have Duchess, who is an American rapper, who is like the biggest star, like the biggest American like woman rapper ever. And we have Jameson, who is the Royal Prince of England. So, like, if you're thinking Meghan and Harry, you're on the right track. However, it's not quite Meghan and Harry because, one, Duchess is huge, like stratospheric. She's like I think she's about to cross like $1 billion. She has like the Rihanna style like cosmetics company that she's negotiating. Like she's really doing the job here. But then also it's not entirely Harry because like this hero is like very, very connected to the royal family, like has work to do, like is deeply embedded in the like work of being a royal. And so the meet cute or the sort of the romance reasons of it all is that there is like a jubilee and there's a concert related to this like birthday or like celebration or anniversary. And they have asked Duchess to perform at the concert, and Jameson is running the concert. And so they are put together, they're sort of thrown together, like she's staying in like a royal home, and like it's his, like he's also in that house. And so like they run into each other and they sort of have this really beautiful kind of forced proximity romance because they're both so famous that they can't like go out and have a cheeseburger. Like they have to, they're like interacting with each other. And it is a situation where like, as we have seen the royal family do, like they are disdainful of the Americanness, the blackness, the like musicness, the whole nine, right, with her. And they are basically like, she is not for us. Like she is not for you. And he is like, fuck you. She's great. Like, look at her. She is a tremendous businesswoman. She is a tremendous performer. She is a tremendous artist. She is fucking gorgeous. She is like the only thing I have ever in my life wanted and cannot have because I am a royal. Like I can't just like snap my fingers and have her come to me. And I want her because I want her, but I also want her because she is her. Like, and it is, I mean, it is so perfectly done. It's kind of like she is I am obsessed with her because she is so much better than me. I am a royal and I cannot believe I get to stand in the same space as her.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, he was on my list too. So I'm glad that you got to him.
So,
and again, I would like all of Tracy's books. All of them.
I mean,
right?
Every one of them.
Every one of them. Yeah, Tracy likes a wife guy. Okay. I am going to talk about The Favor by Suzanne Wright.
Oh, all right.
Which, okay, so this is one I actually started reading kind of like I like to bring up, I like if I have time to like read something new, at least for every topic we do. So I went kind of hunting for like, books that have like my wife or wife guy energy or whatever. And this book is honestly so great. It's from 2020. It came out, but I just am reading it for the first time. And basically, this is like my catnip in every way. So Vienna Stratton is the personal assistant to Dane Davenport, he's a global successful CEO, blah blah blah. And what happens is she started working like downstream from him, like, right, he's the CEO and she had a job for some way level lower, executive in the business. And he overhears her essentially like cursing at her own boss. And she gets called into his office and she's sure that she's going to get fired. But instead, he's like, you're going to be my assistant now because she was like, I thought you were going to fire me. And he's like, well, let me ask you that. Like, would you talk to me that way? And she's like, well, only if you deserved it or needed it. And he's like, that's exactly it. Right. Like you were sort of talking to him that way because it's what lit a fire under him. So he understands that she has this like amazing sense of self. So for 4 years, things sort of like are going along like this, until like two things happen. Number one is we get this little piece of information that he helped her. She had an ex-boyfriend who had made a sex tape of them, and she didn't know it, and he was threatening to reveal it. And he overhears her trying to deal with this guy, and he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And then he says, but you'll like owe me a favor. And she's kind of like, okay, I guess. Like, what is this, the mafia? And then a couple months later, like kind of as the story picks up, he comes to her and he's like, okay, so I'm going to need you to marry me for like it's a marriage of convenience. I have this trust fund that if I don't get married by the time I'm 38, I'm going to lose access to it, and I'm 37. So I'm going to go ahead and like get this going. We'll have to stay married for a year, and then after this. And he kind of talks her into it, and she doesn't really feel like she can say no. And there's like some benefit to her essentially just for like keeping her word or whatever. I was like, sure, because it's romance reasons. Now, at this point, it just feels like kind of like standard. And then Sarah, I swear to God, we meet her. She has foster parents, but then also a birth father that she's in really close contact with. And you're kind of like, well, why is that? Okay, her father has like, okay, there's like a real name for this, dissociative identity disorder. He has like multiple personalities from like childhood abuse he suffered.
Wild.
And I was like,
this is a secondary plot line.
Yes, a whole secondary plot line. And I was just like, okay, I know I haven't gotten to the wife guy thing yet, but I really was like, this book is so like, I don't know, it just felt like, you know how you read an old book and you're like, oh my God, subplots.
Remember subplots, everyone?
Remember like plotting? Anyway, so he has to sort of like run the gauntlet with her family and kind of convince them that they're really dating. They sort of like fake dating for a while, and then they get married in Vegas. And the thing is then this guy goes full my wife. Like full on, like, this is my wife. She has an ex-boyfriend kind of sniffing around. And he basically says to this guy, like, you were dumb enough to let go of her. And I'm not that stupid, right? And the whole time she's like, wow, he is really putting on a good act. And we know that he has probably been putting this thing in motion for years, right? So it's really terrific. The whole thing about him being so protective of her is really awesome. But I think the wife guyness of it too, there's this one scene, and this is where it went from like my wife to wife guy. Her foster sister is a real dirtbag and just real shitty to her. And he catches this and is like, I'm going to take care of it. And she's like, no, you're not. And he's like, no, I'm going to take care of it. It is an insult to me that she is treating my wife like this. And she looked at him and she said, it's not. If you do this, I will lose contact with my foster parents, who I love very deeply. You will make yourself feel better. You will make my life worse. Right. And she basically like kind of puts the whammy on him. Like, if I am important to you at all, you cannot do this. And he backs right down. And it's this great moment where you really see, right, like him kind of shifting from my wife to wife guy.
See, there it is.
Right.
It's great. Exasperated man.
Exasperated man. I cannot believe that anybody treats you like this. And her saying like, you have to let me take care of it. Anyway, it is terrific, and I loved reading it. The Favor by Suzanne Wright.
Amazing.
That was great.
Okay, I want to talk about okay, let's talk about Cat Giraldo's Wild Pitch, which I talked about on the preferential treatment episode briefly, because it is alpha submissive. The heroine doms the hero, which is why I talked about it there. But I also think like we have a straightforward wife guy situation here. So the premise here is that I love this setup. So Sierra is the first female pitcher in the major league in Major League Baseball. And she is brought onto a team, and there is a kind of sense among most of the people on the team, like the other players on the team, that like she was brought onto the team and then like placed on into the All-Star game, just like no amount of time into her career because she is the first woman, right? Like there's this sort of sense of like maybe she's not that good, like maybe she's just like really only here because like she's a DEI hire, right? Like she's a woman. The issue is though, like she's actually really excellent, but she has the yips. So like she got into the major leagues, she like is listening to all of these like horrible like jerks say this stuff about her, and she's like she's nervous. Yeah. The pitcher on this team, and I talked about this in the sports episode, one of my favorite sports tropes is like aging last season hero who's like in pain, like has to sit Roy Kent style in like an ice bath. So the captain of the team and her pitcher is Mateo Reyes, and this is his last season, his last shot at like everything. But he's also captain of the team, and he is like, he takes her under his wing and like basically on the field, like is coaching her to be great again, right? To like stop listening to these voices and be great again. And I mean, what's very sexy about this book for me is like he is fully in charge on the field. She is fully in charge in the bedroom. This is not like, you do not have to love it for that reason, because you can love it for the express reason that Mateo is obsessed with her as not just a woman, not just like a sexy like person who he wants to be with, not just his dom, but he is obsessed with her because she is a fucking great baseball player. Yeah. And he is like, look at my wife. Like, look at her. Yeah. Just, I mean, she's not his wife, but like, look at her. Look at her. Yeah. And he just, everything he does on the field is to make her look better, to make her be better. Like, terrific. So that is Wild Pitch by Kat Giraldo.
Okay. I want to talk about The House on Mulberry Street by Jeannie Chin. Everybody knows
one of your faves.
I love this series, the Blue Cedar Falls series. I do not think that the first two books are like wife guys, really. It's not that that's bad or good. They just aren't. But in this third book, because I was thinking, I found myself thinking, are there tropes that are more wife guy? And I think if it's sometimes friends to lovers can deliver this up, right?
Sure.
And so in this, because he's already so into her, right?
Yep.
And so, but it needs to be the pining version of friends to lovers, right?
Right. Unrequited,
exactly. And so in The House on Mulberry Street, Graham Lewis is our hero, and he and Elizabeth Wu have been roommates and like besties forever. And in the events of the previous book, one of the things, Elizabeth is an artist, and she's really like kind of put that dream on the back burner. But in the previous two books, she sees her sisters kind of reaching out for like the things they want in life, right? Like, kind of like not settling. And so Elizabeth is like, well, I'm not going to settle either. And she applies for all of these like art fellowships, like kind of all over the country. And that's just kind of happening in the background, I think, of the second book. But and you don't really think much about it, but in the third book, we get Graham, who essentially is like, she has no idea how I feel about her. And she was ready to leave me. Like, she was ready to like get like essentially go out and leave. And what about me? And he's like, I cannot be like this anymore, right? Essentially, it's like the inverse of scoring off the field. Okay. And what he decides to do is essentially like buy a house and tell her like, I'm moving out. I'm going to buy my own house. And you have to look for another apartment or another roommate. And this one thing just changes the entire dynamic between them. And it's one of the few like friends to lovers books I think is really exceptional for the fact that like she had no idea. It wasn't that they both knew and were worried about what would happen. It was literally that she had no idea, and that like somehow all of this happening like flips the switch for her too. But he is the thing that I think is also like a really like a fine line to walk is he is not angry that she wanted to follow her pursuit of art. He is so proud of her art. He thinks she is an amazing artist, and he understands that like she never wanted to like live in this small town forever, but he does. And it feels like a really like tricky line to walk, to have somebody be like, I don't really understand your dream, but I know that it's yours and I admire it.
Yeah.
I want you to follow that dream, but I know that that could like really have an impact on me. So I have to live my own life too. But he is so into her.
Yeah.
And it is really essentially like the fact that he like deeply respects her while still being like, I deserve, you know what I mean? Respect you. It's great. It's a great example of like a wife guy book without, I think, any my wife, like strictly wife guy. Yeah.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Erin Langston, author of The Finest Print.
Everyone loves an Erin Langston historical. Man, everyone has been buzzing about these books all year, and this is the start of a new series, I think. So we have American journalist Ethan Fletcher. He has traversed the globe to claim this unexpected inheritance. His uncle has left him a Fleet Street print shop. But once he gets there, he discovers, actually, this place is shackled in debt, and he's got to do anything he can to save this business. Enter Belinda St. Clair, also known as Belle. Belle has been a little touched by scandal, and she has been spending her time writing this gruesome courtroom mystery, but no respectable publisher will touch it. So Ethan makes a deal with her. Essentially, he will take his broad hands that can work a press.
Yeah, he does. I bet those broad hands work a press real good, Jen.
Yeah, his idea is instead of publishing it as a novel, have her serialize it, and he'll publish it as a penny dreadful.
Ah, savvy too.
Yeah,
a businessman.
Exactly. So he is going to use then he can like settle up accounts, and then she will essentially be the hit author of this massive, author of this massive hit that will allow her to keep publishing. So will their partnership be conducive to more than fiction, or will he just sort of like turn away from her once he is out of his financial burdens and leave her?
He's going to want to press something else with those big broad hands.
He better.
If you love a historical romance, a working class hero, a writer heroine, workplace romance, forced proximity, a real us against the world vibe, this one is for you. You can get The Finest Print this week in print, ebook, and in a forthcoming audiobook. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Erin Langston for sponsoring this week's episode. So, all right, I'm going to just name check a couple of books. How about that?
Good.
Okay. So I already said Suddenly You, which is Lisa Kleypas's book about the heroine is a writer, and she, on the eve of her 30th birthday, decides that she's going to dispose of her virginity as a gift to herself so that she can just live out the rest of her life being a writer. And the hero who turns up, she thinks she has hired a sex worker, but in actual fact, the person she hired the sex worker from basically like went to the hero and was like, why don't you go meet this woman instead for business purposes? Because he is a publisher of books. And so he knocks on her door late at night on the eve of her 30th birthday. And she thinks that he is a sex worker. And he is like, well, I'm certainly not going to disabuse you of that belief if I can get this out of that. But he's also like just completely in love with her writing. He thinks she's so talented. And like, this is basically pure writer catnip. Like the publisher just thinks she is the greatest thing ever. And they fall in love. So that's Lisa Kleypas's Suddenly You. He is part wife guy and part my wife.
Yes.
I think. I do want to name check the hating game because I think like
Sure.
the hero of the hating game does the most wife guy thing a hero in an office, a workplace competition romance, like a rivals to lovers romance can do. In that, I mean, it's such a huge book. I'm going to spoil it. In that, like, he gives it up. He gives up the rivalry because he loves her so much, and he's so obsessed with her and thinks she is so talented and great. So there is that. We did an entire season on Cressley Cole, and the longest episode in many seasons was the Sweet Ruin episode because I love that book so much. But there is something to be said about paranormal here.
Yes.
In fact, like maybe we ought to just like pause and talk about paranormal for a second, because I think that one of the difficult things about paranormals is that like everyone's so special. So like, how could you really be a wife guy? But also the moment in Sweet Ruin where Josie, who is a phantom, literally carries an enemy down under the earth and drops him there to kill him, and then returns to the surface of the earth without him, and you see Rune, and we're in Rune's POV, and he sees her do this across the room, and what he says in that moment is mine.
Yeah.
But what he means is fucking look at her.
Yeah, right.
Look at her.
Right. Look
like,
at her.
He's so mad about her.
Yeah.
And it is really a delight to watch.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's funny because I was going to ask you like, who's the most wife guy of all of the IID heroes? And
I mean, that's hard to do because Cressley's written a lot of them.
Yeah. And again, I think it's like scenes. I mean, I think our baby, Conrad Roth, is a wife guy.
Oh, Conrad, my baby.
I think Malcolm is a wife guy.
Oh,
right?
1,000%.
He cannot wait to take care of her.
Way.
And then when she has that like the little girl, right? I'm like, what are names? I don't know. That's like real wife guy energy for sure, right? I think all of the vampires and demons are more wife guy than right?
I was also just going to say, McReeve has that great scene where like the entire clan, the entire clan is wife guy over Chloe playing soccer. Because they have video of Chloe just getting wrecked on the soccer field. And then like standing up and just like rubbing dirt in it and like crushing her opponents. And they're just all like, oh my God, she's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but I mean, they are, because I mean, I think that's it. Like all the Valkyries are so deeply competent that anybody, right? So it's like a lot of them definitely hit that vibe for sure.
1,000%.
Right?
Also, Queen of All Hells.
Hello.
Wicked Abyss. Like she literally shuts him out of his world, his kingdom, and he is just like, well, look at her. Just look at her. That is all you need. Like, you need that's the core of a wife guy. Just like, look at her. Look at this gorgeous thing.
Look at her. Yeah.
Aren't we lucky to be sharing the earth / universe with her? While we're on paranormals, I do want to give a shout out to Thea Harrison's Dragonbound.
Oh yeah,
which I feel like I need to shout out every couple of episodes anyway now, because everybody loves a dragon, and like if you haven't read Dragonbound, you haven't read Shakespeare the way it's meant to be read, right? Like,
sure.
So, shit, that's a deep West Wing cut, everyone. But the Dragonbound, when he finds out, and I won't spoil this because I know a lot of people haven't read this book, but like when he finds out what her real truth is and he can see it for the first time, he has a sort of just he goes galaxy brained.
Oh yeah.
For her. Like he's just like, look at her. Like look at how perfect she is.
Yeah.
And he is the king of all dragons, the owner of the horde, the blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Content warning on that. It begins with an epigraph that is a quote from Donald Trump.
Well, that was
long before he was, Okay, so that's... Oh, and then one more, because we talk about Adriana a lot, but I want to say An Island Princess Starts a Scandal, which is my FF white guy. And this really is the reason why I started thinking about Exasperated Man. Mm-hmm. Ironically, because I think Cora is a wife guy. Yeah. And I think that Manuela, so Manuela is an artist. Like she has this plan for like a piece of land in South America that she's going to turn into like an artist colony. And like there is sort of a back and forth where Cora, the other heroine of An Island Princess Starts a Scandal, is like basically needs that land, like needs to play Risk essentially with that land.
Right.
And there's like, the book is beautiful. Like they sort of, it's like a sex steal and like a month in Paris of just like them loving each other and like being all over and, you know, being super sexy together. But as they fall in love with each other, Cora has to really reconcile with this idea that like what she is doing runs counter to Manuela's happiness. Right. And we know this is like a real this is like a very common theme in romance. This kind of, this woman that I'm falling in love with, like if I continue on the path that I am on, I'm going to impact her happiness. But I think that for wife guys, this comes, the like twist in that is the moment where they realize like, look at how magnificent she is.
Yeah.
At the job, like at the task at hand, right?
Yeah.
Like and Cora has this realization that like all she really wants to do is sit in the sun of Manuela.
Yeah.
And like everything she thought she wanted from like patriarchal Paris pales in comparison to
this, yeah.
Sitting in the sun of Manuela. And so that is my other.
Yeah. I think the first book in that series is also Wife Guy, and I have read it.
A core story.
Sure, I have read it, and I'm going to tell you right now, the third book has big Wife Guy energy, and in one of my favorite scenes of any Wife Guy type of scene is where all of the men like gather together to like shit talk the one who's falling in love now, and I don't want to like spoil it. I hope Audrina won't mind that I'm kind of hinting at something. In the third book, that is a conversation not just between Evan and oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Apollo.
Apollo. Thank you.
In the third book, that conversation is not just between Evan and Apollo, but Cora is there too, and the three of them are the wife guys.
Yeah,
right. And it's
perfect.
It is perfect.
That's also true. Literally, Adriana, I have it on. She is on my list as every Adriana Herrera book, because also I think that you can go to. I think if you go to the one where the boss chases
on the hustle, is my favorite.
A terrific contemporary.
1
week to claim it all. Like her categories with Harlequin all have this energy.
Yep.
Terrific. I gotta say, speaking of categories,
Harlequin
presents heroes.
This is where the wife guys are.
Yeah. Like every one of them goes from exasperated man to wife guy.
Yes.
If
100%.
she's got a job on the back cover of a category romance from the 80s, 90s, or Harlequin Presents of today, he is a wife guy. Guaranteed.
Yes.
That is the McLean promise.
Agree. Okay, so...
All right. So now I'm at authors.
Okay. Tessa Bailey.
I agree. Co-signed.
Can I tell you my favorite wife guy scene in all of Tessa Bailey? Because again, I like these ones where they all get together.
Mm-hmm.
In Up in Smoke, I have reread these 4 pages a million times. It is the second book in a series where Derek, who's her very first hero, goes to New York and gets a bunch of oddballs together to be his new task force. And in this book, Connor is in love with Erin, and he is waiting outside of Derek's door because he is like, I have to talk to him, like, you know. And he gets there, and then Bowen is also waiting. Also, he wants to talk to Derek about he is in the previous book getting together with Sarah, right? And so they're sitting there, and then like there's this other guy, Austin, and whatever. So like there's just like all a bunch of dudes sitting around waiting to talk to Derek. And Connor's like, So wait, I have to read this to you because it is the funniest fucking thing I've ever read. Okay, so they're all just sitting there, and basically Bowen says he's in there with a Mrs. Derek's wife, right? I've been told, right? I've been told interrupting them could lead to severed limbs. I like mine where they are, right? So they're all just sitting there and they're like just shooting the shit and kind of being shitty for there. And then Connor is like looking, he's like the most anxious in the hero of this book. And he says, 2 minutes and I'm going in. A uniformed police officer walked past, whistling through his teeth at Connor's statement, gird your loins, right? So then
Amazing.
They're like ready to all go in there to like rush Derek's door. And as they do, out comes Derek's wife, who it was like Tessa's very first book was about Derek and Ginger. And she comes out and they're like, she's like really young. They can't believe it, right? Like she's got whisker burn on her face.
Yup.
And Connor like essentially shakes her hand and Derek is like literally growling and says, any reason you're standing so close to my wife, right? So Ginger is just like, Derek, like, stop it or whatever. And, like they're just basically like, we shouldn't even like, be touching her, talking to her or whatever. And then essentially like, Derek's like, why are you all here? And he's like, well, I'm worried about Aaron. I'm worried about Sarah or whatever. And he's basically like, what the hell is going on here? Right? Like, what is up in the water? And one of them says to Derek, right? Like, how would you feel if it was your wife out there? And Derek's like, don't ever say that out loud again. And I was like, this is like the wife guys get together and have a wife guy off. That's what that scene was to me.
Yes.
It's amazing. Right?
1000%.
Amazing. But yeah, every Tessa Bailey book is a wife guy.
Every Joanna Shoup book.
100% also features a scene where the three get together in the office and
that's the money.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
we
how
know
you know.
that, right? It's Sarah McLean too. I mean,
yes, put them all together and let them talk about their feelings
and let them be exasperated about their wives. But look at them, Jen. Look at them.
Agree. And I would also was saying, if you like a Joanna Shoup wife guy, then you will like a Mila Finelli wife guy.
Oh yeah, you will.
Because then it's just supercharged wife
those
guy.
are wife guys, child. Those are wife guys that are overlaid on my wife.
Yes. And then like inflated.
Yeah, but like Prince of Broadway.
Prince of Broadway.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, Florence.
Fuck yeah, Florence.
I mean, we're all Florence guys.
Yeah.
Here. But
yes.
I mean, like, that is it. Clay. It's Clay, right?
Yep.
Clay is
whatever
just like, I mean, the second she walks on the page and she's like, teach me how to run a casino for ladies. He's like, what? No. Exasperation, but also look.
Yes. Look at her.
Look at her. Just look at her.
Yes. Every Joanna Shoup agree.
Incredible. Every Beverly Jenkins book.
That was the next one I was going to say. Every Beverly Jenkins book. Every single one.
Every one of them.
Yes.
And I was sitting here and I was thinking to myself, okay, well, there's Indigo, which we've done a deep dive on.
Yes.
There's Forbidden. That's another good one. There's Wild Rain. There's the one where the dishwasher.
Yeah, all of them.
And then there's my like, I think the more I think about it, the more I think, and I know it's like not a popular one for me to say, but like To Catch a Raven, which is her most recent, where she fucking steals the Declaration of Independence, romance is unmatched, and he's like, look at her.
Look at her. Yeah, I also would say, I mean, her contemporaries certainly have that whole vibe, and like one of my favorite Beverly Jenkins is Nighthawk. Right? Where he's just like
another great one.
She's amazing. Let's get on that train.
Hilariously funny Nighthawk, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. She was also on my list. Every Beverly Jenkins book.
All right. Well, I stole your answer. Do you have another person?
No.
Okay.
I feel that me reading that really funny scene was like the wife guyness of it all. I think Kristen Ashley heroes are wife guys, but I think they are like, they don't want to be wife guys, so they fight it more, and they're jerks.
Sure.
So it doesn't always quite work, but I think at their core, fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I have three more.
Okay.
I can't narrow it
No,
down.
no,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fine.
Okay, I'll do this one fast. Every Angelina M. Lopez book is a wife guy. I say all the time after I was on Milagro Street, but Lush Money is also a wife guy.
Yeah.
Full Moon Over Freedom is a wife guy. Angelina loves a heroine who is unmatched. Like a heroine who knows she is. Like knows her worth, knows that like Angelina writes an unlikable heroine better than anybody ever. Maybe Susan Elizabeth Phillips gives her a run for her money on that. And the reality is that the reason why they are, quote, unlikable is because Angelina's heroines know their worth.
Yeah.
And then when they meet, the perfect match for them is a man who can also see that worth.
Yeah.
And it is really just a fun ride. If that's your vibe.
Oh, I do have one more. I'll go last though. I thought of it.
Okay. Every Reese Ryan book.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right?
100%. Yes.
So here we go. We get into categories. Although I went to Reese's website today because I was like, where are we at with Reese Ryan books? Because I've definitely missed a few.
Oh yeah.
Because she writes categories and she writes very quickly. And she looks like she's got a really I pre-ordered one this morning that it looks like maybe she's indie publishing some things too now.
Okay.
But I mean, like, I have never read a Reese Bryan book where the heroine isn't like absolutely perfectly poised and put together and like just about to run the fucking country. And often her heroes are exasperated and then
are like, oh, look at her. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call.
Okay. My favorite Reese Ryan series, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast, is an old Desire series. Pour one out for Desire. The Bourbon Brothers.
Oh, yeah. I remember
and that. So it's like there's an heir, there's like a inheritance, and there's like, there are a couple fake engagements in there. There's some like, dumb Will shit that I love so much. I love Will shit so much. And my favorite of them is Engaging the Enemy, where Parker, the like buttoned up brother, will do whatever it takes to become the head of a distillery. It's all wrapped around a bourbon distillery, and he has to be fake fiance to his childhood like enemy, Kaylee, and like they fucking hate each other, and then he's obsessed with her by the end, and obsessed with her because she's just so qualified.
Definitely qualified.
Except for anything. Like, go tame that tiger, go run that business, go break up this wedding. Whatever she needs to do, she can do it. She's perfect in every way.
Okay, I guess I have two more. I really think the Brown Sisters series by Talia Hibbert has wife guys. Especially Get a Life, Chloe Brown. In the third one, which I think is...
that hero definitely is.
Yeah, right? In the third one, Actor Age, I don't know if he's quite wife guy. He's a bit more surly. But in Get a Life, Chloe Brown, for sure, that is a wife guy. And then, okay, here's my slam dunk.
Yeah, wait, pause, because I think that series is really interesting because I think that series like rides the line of cinnamon roll.
That's why I wasn't sure.
It's like it tips. No, I agree with you that it's on this side of the line.
Right.
But I think like right around there, and I don't know if it's Talia or if it's the timing in like romance history or what it is, but that's right about when sort of single title contemporaries make the shift from wife guy to cinnamon roll.
Yeah. But in this one, I think he's a wife guy. I think he just thinks she's amazing. And I think part of the reason it tips that way for me is because the whole setup is that Chloe is like, I have to get a life for myself, right? Yeah, and here's someone who's like, yeah, I think you're awesome.
You're terrific. What are you talking about?
Okay. A whole series full of wife guys. Ruby Dixon. Ice Planet Barbarians.
Oh my God, of course. What a good answer.
There they are. That's it. I can't believe it. right? That's it. Like,
Look at her. I just
and
have to
we're
go
done.
down on her. I don't even know what else to do.
I don't know what else to do. Look at her. But I mean, but I think the thing too is like the look at her part is obviously that, like, you know, they're matched or whatever, they, you know, fated mates, but that their culture was dying. Their people were dying. And when these women come along, and they are all pretty different, they have to rebuild society in partnership with these women. And instead of it being like, no, you have to do it our way, they are like, oh, that's a great fucking idea. You know what I mean? But they are all, I mean, and that's it. It's like they have such a deep respect for women because they were, like I said, there weren't enough women. Like all these people had been wiped out by an illness. But I was like, oh yeah, Ruby Dixon, all the Ice Planet Barbarians, rename it Ice Planet Wife Guys. You heard it here first.
Listen, I think we really did the job here today, Jen.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah. Oh, no. An honorable mention, Jane Ann Krentz.
Yes,
Because
I would agree. Sure.
All those Amanda Quick books where like they're romping around in caves trying to find like
and he's like, you
special
love
manuscripts.
fossils?
Yeah, all those books. He's just obsessed with her. Like she's brilliant. She's amazing.
Right.
So, I guess what we're saying here, everyone, is that if you're looking for wife guy content, you can come to me anytime and I'd be happy to give you a recommendation. I'm just so delighted by this corner of romance.
Yeah.
Because I think that it is like the perfect aspirational read for all of us. Like every single woman in the world deserves a man to look at her and go, look at you. Look
exactly.
at, do you see her? Do you see how great she is? I love it. I love it. Anyway, I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. We are Fated Mates, and you can listen to us every Wednesday wherever you get your podcasts or on our website at fatedmates.net. We're also everywhere on social media. You can find us on Tumblr, on Threads, on Instagram, on Blue Sky, and other places as well. You can watch the podcast sort of on YouTube. Eric's over there making psychedelic video for you over there in case you drop a Lumi and want to hang out. Listen, we are phone banking straight through the election. You can find more information about that at fatedmates.net/fated states. And if phones freak you out and you'd rather do something else, how about offering some money up to the Fated States Giving Circle, which is raising money for down ticket races in Pennsylvania to ensure that when Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get sent to the White House, they get to stay there. We are making sure that we hold the Pennsylvania state legislature blue and make sure that the votes in Pennsylvania, our biggest swing state, get certified. That is what we have for you today. Stay tuned for a special audio sneak peek of Sarah Chamberlain's The Slowest Burn. And tell us about your wife, guys. Everyone, we love you.
This is all a celebrity chef needs to get a cookbook deal? A 2-line email from his agent and a ridiculous nickname? I waved the offending printout at my best friend, unable to keep the exasperation out of my voice. Nicole stretched elegantly in the conference room chair, like a cat soaking up the weak January sun. Tobias Paul represents anyone who's anyone in food, and the Happy Pirate Leprechaun is a great nickname. For the mascot on a box of marshmallow cereal, I grumbled. Happy New Year to me. Most days, ghostwriting cookbooks was my dream job. Publishers paid me to both cook and write, which would be my hobbies anyway. In addition to capturing my subject's voice, like every ghostwriter had to, I was also a translator, taking the huge quantities and multiple sub-recipes of restaurant dishes and turning them into straightforward instructions an ordinary person could follow in their home kitchen. But I was a guide, too. A companion, helping chefs and home cooks connect to each other so everyone could eat delicious food. To ghostwrite a cookbook successfully, I had to be rock solid, methodical, precise, great at managing money and time, and, above all, patient with people's foibles. But the lack of information on this project left me feeling like I was balancing on an office chair, the wheels on the verge of going out from under me. It didn't help that Kieran O'Neill was late. The local chef's victory on the reality TV show Fire on High had triggered a 6-way bidding war to publish his first cookbook. Alchemy Press's editor, Tad Winthrop, had won the auction by promising him a ridiculous amount of money and the services of his most diligent ghostwriter. I would write recipes and stories in Kieran's voice, and Nicole would shoot the accompanying pictures. Today, we were all meeting for the first time to discuss our plans for the next several months of work. I read the email aloud, hoping that more words would magically appear. Kieran O'Neill wants to write a cookbook about having fun in the kitchen. Call me. Having fun? Great, thanks. That tells me everything I need to know. Nicole checked the ends of her long black hair. Fire on High is the competition show of the decade. I know you only watch historical British people falling in constipated love, but even you've absorbed that by osmosis. I shook my head. Not just osmosis. I did watch the whole season, also known as 15 hours of my life I could have spent learning to knit or finally reading A Suitable Boy. Or, if we were being honest, 5 historical romance novels. She dropped the strands. How could you not like it? Like him. He goes on a journey. She waved her hands. Underdog made good, figuring out his voice. I folded my arms and sighed. Your jazz hands are super cute, but you know I only watched it because I had to. I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, it's just not for me. I went to the floor-to-ceiling window, soaking in the peacefulness of the view. The Golden Gate Bridge was an elegant red line in the distance, and Marin's hills rolled out like deep emerald velvet in the early afternoon light. Nicole leaned on the glass next to me, but she wasn't looking at the view. I know you believe it's not what cooking is, she said. The humor turned to concern. That it shouldn't be about showing off and gimmicks. It should be about caring for people and making them happy. But a lot of people like the performance. The Banquet YouTube channel wouldn't have billions of hits if they didn't. But it's so fake. Okay, fine. You're never going to watch goofy cooking videos with me. So, did you just watch the show through your fingers, or do you actually know what his deal is? I rested my hand on my chest, fake offended. How dare you doubt my search engine prowess? I know his full name is Kieran Michael O'Neill, and he's 27. He was born on December 18th. Nicole smiled. Of course, he's such a classic Sagittarius. My eyes rolled to the ceiling. Yes, if you think an individual's entire personality is determined by where the stars are in the sky at a random date and time. Spoken like a true Virgo, she tutted. Anyway, he's from Ojai in Ventura County, graduated from Nordhoff High School and then from Santa Barbara City College with a culinary arts certificate. He worked at the Pacific Hotel in Montecito for 2 years. Then Steve Yuan brought him to Qui in San Francisco. He went from intern to sous in under 4 years. How did he get his nickname? Pirate, because of the black bandana he wears. Leprechaun, because he clicked his heels at one of the judging panels and became a meme. Also because he's short and red-headed. Not that he could help either of those things. Favorite ingredient? Which he'd been asked in every interview. Citrus. He likes how it wakes up food. Nicole threw up her hands. Okay, You know a bunch of facts, but you don't know what he's like. I guess I'll figure that out once I meet him. If he ever gets here. She growled. I don't get it. This project is so not your bag. Why did you say yes this time? Before you give me a ridiculously complicated answer, I need sustenance. She turned around and plucked one of the wan supermarket croissants from the plastic tray in the middle of the table, leaving a greasy silhouette behind. Want one? I shook my head. Sad pastry. Sad pastry is better than no pastry. I eyed the drooping croissant in her hand. I beg to differ. So picky. I prefer discerning. One, I said yes because Tad asked me especially. He said he needed his most reliable person. I prided myself on never making promises I couldn't keep, and on always delivering with a smile. The world won't end if you say no to him occasionally, she said, with the tiredness of having had this conversation many times before. You don't always have to be available. I ignored the niggling edge of her comment. Being available wasn't an issue when I didn't have anywhere else to be. I owe him for being so good about Max. She softened a little. You owed him 2.5 years ago, and it wasn't like you were behind on the La Estufa cookbook for no reason. Your husband died, and you've been amazing since then. You're beyond even. Maybe. Tad had told me to take all the time I needed, no questions asked. He'd sent ready-made food to stock my freezer and a book of Auden poems he loved, and checked in with me every week until I was ready to work. Not maybe, but whatever. So I know what Tad wants, but what do you want, Ellie? I watched a little boat scoot toward the Emeryville Marina, silently cheering for it to make it home. I knew what I wanted. Certainty. After spending a decade holding everything together for my younger brother, while our dad was nowhere and our mom may as well have been, Max and the Wasserman family had been the safest of harbors. I learned that when I visited them, his father Ben would always kiss both my cheeks with a smack, then pour me a beer and ask what I'd thought of the latest Warriors basketball game. That his mother Diane would pull me into the kitchen to taste a sauce and debate whether it needed more salt or lemon, then press her new favorite novel into my hands. After Max and I got married and he'd been hired at UC Davis, I'd known that every time he came home from a long day teaching Flaubert and Balzac in French to undergraduates, he'd tell me how much he loved seeing my smile, that he would bring me red roses every Wednesday, that every Friday afternoon we'd drive back to Berkeley for Shabbos dinner. I'd known, too, that once he'd won tenure, we'd buy one of the old-fashioned clapboard houses near the university, and we'd have a baby. A sweet baby with Max's dark eyes, who'd grow up in a home full of love and warmth, who'd know in their bones they were wanted. All of those certainties dissolved in a late-night phone call from Paris 2.5 years ago. No more Max, no more home, no more sweet, dark-eyed baby. Seriously, though, why not go out with someone who's like Max's opposite? Nicole asked through the haze of memory. I blinked awake. Why on earth would I do that? He'd drive me up the wall. I know Max decided you were his soulmate on day one, but for most people the first date is supposed to be fun. Why not go out with someone just for fun? She pointed to the printout. Are you against fun? Oh, for Pete's sake, I'm not against fun. Two male voices got louder and louder outside, and Nicole tapped my arm. Then prove it. Here he comes. Before he walked into the room, I'd thought I'd known what Kieran O'Neill looked like. But Nicole was right. There were facts, and there was experience. On screen, he was handsome in a fey kind of way, pale-skinned and wiry and high-cheekboned. But in person, with his wide mouth smiling and his eyes crinkled in laughter, he was mischievous Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream, with hair like an autumn bonfire hanging down to his jaw and silvery green eyes. All he needed was a crown of leaves, and to be bare-chested instead of wearing a holey old band t-shirt. Its neckline had split away, his jeans had rips to match, and his Chuck Taylors were so old that the black canvas had faded to dark brown. Maybe you weren't supposed to notice the scruffiness once you saw his face, but his face wasn't going to help me buy the home I'd always wanted. "Let me introduce you all," Tad said, like we were at a cocktail party and not in a room that smelled like lunchtime pizza. "Kieran, this is Nicole Salazar, who'll be shooting your book." Kieran grinned. "Nice to meet you, Nicole. Steve told me all about you." She chuckled. "I'm surprised. Your boss still owes me $20 from when I beat him at ping pong." He flailed his arms in pretend shock. But no one's ever beaten him." She blew on her fingernails. "I'm just that good." I just barely repressed my eye roll at their banter. Tad finally turned to me. "And this is Ellie Wasserman, your ghostwriter." When we shook hands, his was rough in the right places for someone who'd worked with knives and fire for a long time. His grip was strong, too. Though I didn't know why chefs insisted on having knives tattooed on their arms. It wasn't like they were going to forget what they did for a living. "Pleased to meet you, Kieran," I said. His skin was warm, and when he smiled back at me with all his teeth, it stretched the tiny scar below his lip. I blinked a few times, but that delicate little line still pulled my attention. "The mysterious Ellie Wasserman," his lips said, smiling wide. "But I guess that's a ghostwriter's job, to be all spooky." He waved his fingers in the universal sign for spooky, and my distraction went up in smoke. Just what I needed. Someone who didn't take my job seriously. I narrowed my eyes at him, and his big smile shrank. "Let's get started," Tad said, turning to the table. Once we'd sat down, I laid out my planner and my notebook, lining up my black Pilot pen next to them. Nicole pulled out her reporter's notepad and opened a new voice memo on her phone. Across from me, Kieran took out nothing and jammed his hands into his armpits. His eyes darted around the room, over my shoulder, looking anywhere but at Tad, who was describing the publishing process. Finally, Kieran picked up one of the cheap alchemy ballpoint pens. Maybe he'd write something on his hand? No, he just clicked the pen open and shut. Open and shut. Open and shut. Open and... pop. The pen exploded, and a spring shot across the table and landed on my notebook. Tad stopped speaking. I carefully pinched the spring between my thumb and index finger and put it to the side. "Shall I carry on?" Tad asked. Kieran said, Of course. My bad." He smiled and mouthed, "Sorry," at me. I shook my head. It was obvious why I was getting double my fee. I'd have to earn it.
Thank you for listening to this clip provided to you by Macmillan Audio. To hear more, look for this title wherever audiobooks are sold.